Hello and welcome to episode 39 of the Best Games Period. I'm your host, Jack Gardner, and with me this week are the lovely Jeremy Brown and Daniel Jones. And this week we are going to be talking about the one, the only, Okami from Clover Studio and the talented Hideki Kamiya. Probably pronounced that horribly wrong.
No, I think that's right. I practiced, so I think you got it right, yeah.
All right. This game came out back in 2006, and some people still hold it up as one of the most gorgeous games to come out on the PlayStation 2.
Yeah, it came out, obviously at the end of the PlayStation 2 era.
Yeah, right on the edge of PlayStation 3.
Definitely, in my opinion, is beautiful. I just really like the aesthetic, the art direction, all of it.
Yeah, something about the cell shading in, like, PlayStation 2, GameCube era games.
Yeah.
It's really pretty.
That and Wind Waker and, like, Killer 7 and...
Mario Sunshine.
It's a weird combination of cell shading and I don't know what the other word is, but it's
Wait,
like
what?
It's not all cell shading.
Yeah.
Huh?
Mario Sunshine?
Yeah.
What?
That game's cel-shaded?
Yeah.
What? No. Are you thinking, like, Paper Mario?
No.
What? Mario Sunshine is not cel-shaded.
I'm pretty sure it is.
I have no dog in this fight. I'm going to agree with Jack, though.
Mario Sunshine,
Yeah.
cel-shaded. No.
I'm pretty sure it's cell shaded. Or at the very least, its art style looks very much like cell shading.
No, it's just Mario 64 Advanced. It's just pixelated. That's not cel shading.
It's pixelated, cell shaded.
I mean, just because
That could be a new thing.
there's 2D models for 3D objects does not mean that it's cel shaded. That's completely different. You're thinking Paper Mario.
Papier-mâché Mario.
Papier.
You're probably right. But something about that era of graphics puts Super Mario Sunshine in the same category for some reason in my brain.
Fair enough.
I guess. No, I'm watching Paper Mario right now. It's got like that cartoonish look that like Sonic games of that era had too.
Maybe it's just like the blazing bloom lighting or something. I don't know.
Maybe you're thinking of Wind Waker.
You're thinking of Paper Mario.
Or Borderlands.
No, I'm not thinking about Paper Mario. I was thinking about Super Mario Sunshine.
Well, you're so wrong then. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I'm watching a video of it right now. It is just Mario 64 evolved, basically.
Well, you can't see the cell shading unless you watch it on a 4K TV.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that's right. Preferably from Sony.
Well, it's got to be from Sony.
Well, it has to be, yeah. Or unless you're playing it on an iPhone. Anyway, so how you guys been?
Been all right.
Jack, I just want to point out that your intros have gotten more and more Bob Barker-esque. As
More. Hey, we're on the show. Yeah, that's totally Bob Barker. That's
Maybe Bob Barker is
Come
the
on
wrong.
down.
Actually, it's not really so much Bob Barker. It's the other dude. Who's the guy that did the announcing on Price is Right? Because that's who it's like.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a compliment or not.
No, it is a compliment. It's very enthusiastic and professional, and makes me want to keep listening.
Well, good, because you're actually on the show. I would hope you want to keep listening.
I check out once in a while.
Now I want to guess prices to random household objects.
How much is a 4K TV? That can be your first guess. Yeah, let's talk about how we're doing first, because we got really off track there for a little bit.
Yes, sorry.
So, Captain America Civil War is now available on Blu-ray. Probably a 4K version out there somewhere.
And how much is it, would you guess?
For the Blu-ray?
Yeah.
I think it's like $30, but it comes with a digital copy.
Daniel, how much do you think it is?
Are we saying at Walmart?
I mean, this is full retail here.
Yeah.
We're not talking sales or discounts.
Are we saying specifically at Walmart?
Yep. Captain America Civil War on Blu-ray 4K.
$29.97.
Yeah, I might have went over with 30. I should have said I should have said $1. Dang it.
Yep. I'm just going to give it to Daniel.
What is it?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know why we even started talking about it.
I thought you looked it up on the website or something.
If we keep talking Price is Right, we're going to end up talking Pachinko again.
But wait, do you guys understand why I said $29.97?
Yes, because Walmart.
Because Walmart's prices are weird like that. They always
They roll it back 2
Yeah.
pennies.
they try to undercut their competition by 2 cents.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but I guess that works.
so how are you guys?
Well, just for the record, I'm seeing prices of $19.99 actually.
Oh shoot!
So Daniel still wins, but
Well, no, he went over as well. If you go over, you don't win.
oh, that's right. No one wins. I win. Haha.
That's not how it works. Never mind. You're not a good Price is Right host anymore.
Why?
You're the one that claimed he was, not him. You got one of those tiny little microphones?
You can't steal the competitors' prizes. That's not how it works. Bob Barker doesn't just leave every show with a new car and then trip to Malibu.
You mean he doesn't leave every show to go back to his home with 12 hot tubs?
Nope.
and his
Just 12
spayed
hot
and neutered
super
dogs.
All right.
All right, can we
Or Bob
seriously
Barker.
Yeah,
move on from this?
Seriously, how are you guys?
Pretty good. I've been playing a crap load of Pokemon Go, which has become probably more unhealthy than it should be. I'm kind of obsessed with it.
What level are
Yeah,
you?
you are in charge of all the gyms in your area.
Oh man, I've been working on this one for like 3 days because it was at like 60,000 prestige. I've wiped out my entire crew. Like I have no revives left. So if somebody else takes it over, it'll be a while before I can even try. I am at level 25, almost to level 26, and the higher you level, you need much more experience points to level. So
Yeah.
I'm approaching 1 million total experience points.
Jeez.
Goodness.
I'm still like level 15.
I mean, I walk a lot, I guess.
That's good.
Yeah.
Other than that, things aren't too terribly bad. School started for the kids, so I don't have to feed him as much, which is nice.
I like how you talk about Dylan sometimes like he's like a sea monkey or a hedgehog.
Yeah. Well, he's at that age now where I really don't have to pay much attention to him except for his basic life needs.
Yeah, that's
Not that I don't want to or won't, but I mean, you know, he can walk up and down the stairs by himself and all that stuff.
Yeah, we understand. Stop clarifying it. It's just making it worse.
Right? Yeah, that's about it for me. Daniel, what say you?
Well, my sea monkey is doing all right. She hasn't moved to preschool quite yet. She's taken to talking to everybody on the phone now. It's really adorable. She does this thing where she's got this little fake phone. She has several fake phones, and so she plays with them. And we'll be driving home from school or whatever, and she'll call her friend from school, and she'll just go. Her friend's name is Melissa, but they all call her Bissa because that's how they pronounce it.
How old is she now?
She's 2.5.
So when she turns 3, she'll get a legit iPhone 7, right?
Oh, you betcha. No, we were actually talking about maybe getting, like, I saw a deal on a Kindle Fire, really cheap one, but just something that we can use when, like, the other one's watching a show that we don't want to watch or whatever. You know, like, if Goalie's watching friggin' Bachelor in Paradise or something, I can watch something on a moderately sized screen instead of my phone.
Right.
Or vice versa. I can play a video game and she can watch something on there. Or do a podcast and she can watch something on there and, you know, that kind of thing. But we would also probably let Quinny use it on occasion.
Right.
Which is a little scary.
The first thing I hung on my fridge was the picture that Quinny drew me when I was there, by the way. My new fridge.
Oh,
Aw, nice.
that is adorable.
Well,
What
nobody
was
else
the
draws
picture?
me pictures. A bunch of scribbles, and then she traced her hand.
Well, isn't that adorable?
Totes adorbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played Inside this week.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
what'd you think? Would you give it like a Super Mario Run out of Temple
Super
Run?
Mario Sunshine. I would give it probably 1 1/4 Limbos. Meaning it's a little bit better than Limbo, but like coming so long after Limbo, its impact isn't quite as great.
Interesting.
If that makes sense.
Interesting.
But it does everything better than Limbo.
Would you
I think
say
it's-
that's because it's what's on the inside that counts?
Yes, exactly, Jack.
Okay.
That's exactly it. Yep.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yep.
That was a good one.
That game's crazy. I'm not gonna spoil it, but you gotta like. It's worth playing. It's not necessarily my favorite. I still probably like Limbo better, but I can recognize that it's a better designed game overall. But and it tells a much more interesting story for sure, and really thought provoking. Like I'm still thinking about it and trying to interpret how I feel about it. But it's good. It's not my favorite game of the year, but it's a very good game.
Would you say that?
It doesn't even have an outside chance of being your favorite game of the year.
No, it doesn't even have an outside chance. No, that's either No Man's Sky, Uncharted, or Salt and Sanctuary. I loved all of those games so much so far this year.
Salt and
Salt and
Sanctuary,
Sanctuary
wasn't from
this year?
Yes, it was.
No.
Yes, it was earlier this year.
Really?
Look it up.
Okay, I believe you. I'm just
We
incredulous.
discussed it on the show, and we didn't even start the show till like
Yeah, I think it
last
might
year.
have been pretty early
Yeah.
in the year, but I do think it was this year.
It was in the lead up to Dark Souls 3, so
That's right.
you get a pass this time, Daniel Jones.
I love that game so much. Well, how about you, Jack? What have you been up to? What's new with you? What's going on with you?
Not a whole lot. I've been pretty tired this week. I've been keeping odd hours and working on a bunch of projects, which you can find over on community.extra-life.org, along with this show. But
Very good.
little shameless plug.
Yep.
But I do have a tale to weave. I told you guys about that before the show, but I haven't actually
Yes, spin that yarn.
didn't actually tell you what it is. So the other day I was on Twitter. I keep an eye on it throughout the day, and I noticed the developer behind Frog Fractions, which I really want to talk about Frog Fractions on this show someday.
Sure.
I think that'll be a really fun episode. Have either of you played that?
No.
Nope, I
Jeremy?
don't even know what it is. If I heard frog fractions, I would assume
It
somebody
is-
meant frog legs.
I legitimately think it's one of the best games I've ever played in my life.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing, and it's free. If you're listening, look up Frog Fractions, and then find me at Riverboat Jack on Twitter, and tell me how right I am.
Would it run on my laptop?
Yes, it's a browser
Okay.
game.
Great.
Is there an app?
There's no app. I don't know if it would run on a phone. I think it would. I'm not sure.
Jack, they say that phones these days are more powerful than the space shuttle that sent the man to the moon, so I'm sure it could run on a phone.
So the developer behind that tweeted out, he retweeted a link to something. I was like, oh, that's weird. And basically it was a Twitter conversation about basically, video game journalists are shirking the real news, like why the sonic ring sound is in my local Shell gas station. I was like, what? That's weird. And so I started looking into it. And basically, I started that around, like, I thought it would take me maybe a half hour tops. I started around like 10 o'clock last night and went until about 6 a.m. trying to figure this out, and only gave up when I realized that it was 6 o'clock in the morning and I was looking up videos of children's cash registers. So here's what I found out. Or rather, didn't find out. It's very weird. But there, starting in about 2008, right, there were these cash registers that started appearing around the country. They're called point-of-sale terminals, right?
Yeah.
It's like the fancy way of saying cash register now. And a lot of them, primarily in gas stations and convenience stores, seem to be putting out the sound that Sonic makes when you run over rings in the Sega Genesis version of Sonic. Which I've found several different theories. Like, there are some that say, it's a Chinese manufacturer that just doesn't give a rat about licensing. There's another theory that basically that the software for those point-of-sale terminals got outsourced, and a developer who liked Sonic just kind of included that as an Easter egg. But this isn't...
kind of makes sense.
And then there was stuff like, these convenience stores must have put together like custom sounds for their point-of-sale terminals. Well, except that doesn't really pan out, because as far as I know, it's really hard to do that. And B, this is more widespread than just a few mom-and-pop stores. As far as I can tell, it's spread around Canada and all across the United States, many different states. The sound has been reported being heard in many different competing gas station chains. Just to name a few of them I have here. Shell, Mobil, 7-Eleven, Sunoco, Chevron, many more.
Were you able to figure out who the manufacturer of those terminals is?
No. And,
I would imagine it's all the same.
Well, yeah, that's... I have to imagine it's one manufacturer.
Right.
So here's the thing. There's actually a few different sounds in those that you can choose. You can't, customize and upload your own.
Right.
But, yeah, they don't all have to be beeps or boops. There are, a handful. At least the last one I worked with was that way. You could change it.
Okay. Yeah. And so... the other thing is, people have actually taken comparisons of the sound that they recorded in the convenience store and compared it to the ring noise in the Sonic games, just to make sure it's not like some slight knockoff or something. And as far as a lot of people can tell, it's the exact same noise, which can't just be a coincidence, because the Sonic ring noise was made on the very specific constraints of the Sega Genesis sound chip. And so the most likely theory that I have going right now is that back in 2004, Sega was actually bought by a company... well, not bought, but Sega and a company called Sammy merged together. And interesting that you would bring up Pachinko earlier in this episode, Jeremy, but Sammy actually is a major player in the pachinko market over in Japan. And so they formed a company called Sega Sammy. And Sega continues to exist as a subsidiary of Sega Sammy. Sammy has has a huge investment in the pachinko market, but they kind of wanted to diversify their holdings, to make sure they don't have all their eggs in one basket. And so they've slowly been buying up technology to kind of continue running pachinko parlors without having to buy third-party stuff. They can buy it all in-house. So that includes machine manufacturing, stuff like that. But they also have a resort business, and like they have their hands in all kinds of different things. I couldn't find any definite confirmation that Sega Sammy sold off or licensed the rights to a manufacturer to use those sounds in their systems. But I did find that a couple years ago they trademarked, it's called the Sega Cyclone Development Kit, which basically, as far as I can tell, is like arcade equipment stuff. However, in the trademark also covers point of sale terminals, software for that stuff. I also found that back in 2005, Sega Sammy acquired the Hi system. It's called Hi Systems, or it was called that, and they were a point of sale manufacturer that specialized in like arcade point of sale stuff. But in a 2005 financial report, it also seems like they wanted to expand that business into general point of sale. However, it doesn't seem like Sega directly manufactures that stuff. And yeah, so I'm kind of in this spot where I don't really know what's going on. But it's very weird. And so I reached out to Sega for comment, and they're trying to figure out they're trying to figure out what's going on.
So you went through all this to find out if the noise that several point of sale systems make is the same as the noise from the original Sonic.
Well, the thing is, it is the same.
Okay,
like,
so you're just trying to figure out why?
Yeah, how does a sound from a Sega Genesis game, a classic Sega Genesis game, wind up in a point of sale machine that people had? And it's not just like a few people and like somebody seems to have like edited a video or something. It's like hundreds of people across almost a decade have been saying that they've heard this, or that their local gas station makes this noise when they're being wrung out.
So, I don't know, I guess it's been like 7 or 8 years now. When we upgraded our point of sale systems at the last hospital I worked at, it was hugely expensive.
Yeah.
And the guy that came on site for like a week, that basically he took all the information we needed, because it's much different than a cash register. It's completely different. Right. I mean, it's basically a computer. It inventories everything. It does all that stuff. So he had to get all of our data and all that junk. And the guy was a huge gamer. Like, we spent a lot of time talking about video games. Now, I'm not saying he's responsible for all of this, but I can only imagine that most of the people that do that job are kind of in the same boat.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of leaning towards the theory that somebody just put it in there as an Easter egg.
Yeah, it seems like that, but it also seems like that would be something that, if it was discovered, would be something you could sue over, right? Because I don't think the sonic ring sound is public domain. I'm pretty sure that's still...
I mean, it's pretty old. Don't patents or things like that expire?
Yeah, but they still have the rights over that. They still have the intellectual property rights over the original Sonic. It's like...
Yeah.
You know, it's...
I don't know. That's a head scratcher.
So
you're gonna have to find out.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I'm doing my best, but
stay tuned next week for an update.
Are you gonna write about this?
That was the plan. Yeah.
You did so much work on it. I feel like you kind of have to.
Well, and here's the thing. Like, Sony does technically manufacture cash registers, or you could conceivably point to them as point of sale systems, except that the cash registers in question are part of a toy line, a Japanese toy line. So the reason I ended up watching these videos of these Japanese toy registers was because I wanted to see if the sound effect was included in the toys, which seemed to make sense to me at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Of course.
So I have one burning question, Jack,
Yes.
in all your research. Did you happen to check to see if Sonic, the food chain, their point-of-sale machines have that sonic ring?
Well, I didn't check that specifically, but it seemed like it was limited to gas stations.
Yeah, because like restaurant point of sale, they don't actually ring things up. It's when you scan it in front of it and it beeps or boops or dings or whatever.
Yeah, and then the videos I saw of this sonic ring sound, they would scan the item and it would do the normal beep you would expect, but then it would do the sonic ring sound like a half second later.
Huh.
It's definitely, as far as I can tell, the sonic ring sound. And
Cool.
I just want to know how it ended up there. It's
Clearly,
so weird.
he spent 8 hours on it, so it's something you're trying to figure out. I get it.
Yep. Anyway, if you're listening to the show and I don't get an answer back from Sega about what exactly is going on, they said they would try and figure it out. They'd try and dig up some stuff, or put me in contact with people who would know better.
Great. Now you're going to put the entire service station industry out of business because there's going to be a pending lawsuit, and they're going to have to shut down shop until they get it straightened out. Way to go, Jack.
If they don't get back to me, if you know of a gas station where they have sonic ring noises when they ring you out, I would really appreciate it if you went to my Twitter and let me know. A, let me know if that happens to you, and B, go in and just ask them what the name of the manufacturer for their point of sale system. Because if it has nothing to do with Sega or Sega Sammy, then it has to do somewhere with the manufacturing, and I want to get to the bottom of this. Dang it.
I want to say Intech makes a lot of those.
Yeah, I was looking last night at, there's a company called POSX. They make a lot of stuff that looked very similar to something I saw in a video that someone took of this, and I was looking at, I was trying to figure out if High Systems still makes POS, but...
Intech just might be the hardware. I mean, most of them are proprietary. Like I said, they have to come into your business and specifically gear it towards that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, let me know.
I've never experienced this before.
Me neither. But then again, a lot of the stations that seem to have been affected, I don't like. Around here, we have Holiday and BP. Like, those are the two main gas stations I see all over the place.
We have Town Pumps, Loaf and Jugs, and Holidays.
Yeah, so
well, not here. We have one little tiny non-name brand gas station here, but in Great Falls, that's what they have.
So I haven't, from what I've seen, none of the gas station companies around me have been affected by this kind of thing. But again, if you have a Shell or a Valero or here are a few of the others: Exxon, Wagabag, Mobil, 76, Sunoco, Chevron, Duke, Duchess, Fast Break, all those, a lot of those chains. Just keep an ear out for the sonic ring noise. Let me know.
So here's what you need to do. You need to somehow get the sonic ring noise like on your phone.
Yeah.
And when you go into those places that have that as their point of sale sound, you need to like do it like right after it does it, and it'll really confuse them. It'll make them think it rang up twice, and then they'll be like, "What happened?"
That's such a small time prank.
I know, right? Oh man! So that are you done spinning that yarn?
Yeah, I'm
done.
done.
That was quite the story.
I'm done.
That is quite the investigation you've got going there, Jack.
Yeah, I'm really uncovering the dark
some
and seedy secrets.
Walter Cronkite stuff there.
Pretty soon I'll be
Really?
wearing a fake mustache for a secret meeting.
Let's talk about Okami.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay.
That game I know very little about. Sorry. My main contribution was sonic ring noises.
Well, I appreciate you being able to contribute that, Jack. Who is the expert in our group?
Well, I'm probably the most well-versed in our group. I don't know that I would call myself an expert, but...
Well, of the three of us.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
You're an expert for the next 40 minutes.
Yep.
Okay. So, Okami is a video game that was published by Capcom, developed by Clover Studios. It happened to be the last Clover Studios game developed. Jack, you said you know a little bit about Clover, so I won't go much into that. I'll let you do that.
Yeah.
It came out on 2006, as we mentioned, on the PlayStation 2, and again in 2008 on the Wii, and a remaster HD version came out on PSN in North America for the PlayStation 3 in 2012, and a disc-based version of that same game came out in Japan. I'm not sure about other regions. It relies very heavily on Japanese folklore. A lot of the references in the game and story in the game comes directly from that. Some of it is pretty much mirrored. Some of it is changed up a bit. But essentially, you start out, and one of my qualms about this game, although it's worth it, is that it takes forever to get through the introduction. But you kind of need the introduction to understand the story of the game. But it's set sometime in the past, there's never really a timeline given, but a long, long time ago in Japan.
Yeah, it's kind of their mythical history, right?
Yeah.
So there was a darkness that had kind of overtaken the world, and one village was somehow mostly shrouded from that darkness, called Kamiki Village, I believe. And nobody really knew why they were kind of immune to the rest of it. In a cave not far from there called the Moon Cave, there was a sacred sword, so on and... Well, wait, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Anyway, there's a moon cave nearby. And there's also a dungeon where this monster called Orochi lives. And the way it kind of ties into Japanese lore is there's a story of a person in a village that had 8 daughters, and every year this monster came and ate one of the daughters. And after the 7 daughters had been eaten...
Dang, that's a lot of daughters.
It is. They decided to try to fight against it when it came to eat the 8th daughter. So Orochi is this 8-headed monster, and he comes to the village every year and eats one of the maidens, one of the pretty girls. It's not necessarily one person's 8 daughters, but it comes from that lore.
It doesn't have like a checklist where it's like, well, I'm letting you off the hook because you don't have 8 daughters yet.
And that's an actual myth. Like, that's an actual Japanese myth. That's not just the story of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to
I'm just clarifying.
So, the way that it's determined which maiden is going to be sacrificed / eaten that year is a white arrow is shot into, like, the roof of their house. So, this one year, there's a white arrow shot into the fairest maiden, the prettiest girl in town. And there's a guy named Nagi who's secretly in love with this girl, and he decides to defend her and try to fight. Whoa.
So you're going to tell me that he's not going to defend the ugliest girl in town? It's only when the prettiest... He's fine with all the other maidens getting taken, but over his dead body, you're taking the prettiest one.
Well, maybe she's only the prettiest one because the other prettiest ones have already been taken. I don't know. I mean, maybe he's just getting older and wants to settle down. So anyway, he goes to this moon cave and finds the sacred sword. And in the meantime, there's this white wolf, like pure white wolf, Snow White, kind of reminds me of Game of Thrones in a way, that kind of hovers around the village. And nobody knows a whole lot about her. It's a girl wolf. But most people assume that it's, an agent of Orochi, and it's just kind of spying on things, that it's probably evil.
Okay.
So anyway, Nagi goes and gets the sword, and when Orochi shows up to take the fairest maiden remaining, he starts fighting him, and he's kind of getting it handed to him, and then the wolf, whose name is Shiranui, I probably mispronounced that, Shiranui.
I feel like we're going to mispronounce a lot of names in this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is easy to do because in this game there isn't any real voice acting. It's very Zelda-like, where it's like they actually did voice recordings.
I was just gonna say that.
And reversed it so that it was just mostly mumbles. So
Mumbo jumbo, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, this wolf helps Nagi fend off Orochi. Eventually, they kill Orochi, but the wolf is also severely injured and goes into a deep sleep, presumably dead. Orochi gets sealed up in his dungeon, blah, blah, blah. The hero, Nagi, who's also pretty badly wounded but survives, goes and puts the sword back in the moon cave. And that is, I guess, what keeps Orochi sealed away. I wasn't really ever real clear on that.
So that's the game.
So this is like the first 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. That sounded like a full plot.
And it's all done through like this comic type, like anyway.
Okay.
Parchment
fast
paper type story.
Fast forward 100 years, and an unknown person, you eventually find out who he is, gets drunk, goes to the moon cave, and is like, oh, hey, look at this sword. This can't be the sword of destiny or whatever it was called. And pulls it out, which, of course...
Oh no, it is the sword of destiny.
Unleashes Orochi. So the whole story kind of starts over again. It's the same village, obviously. And this village, again... So the world goes back into darkness, but this village, again, is somehow mostly protected from that by this wood sprite named something or another, which is a tree, more or less. And the fruit on her tree is the spirits of all the people in that town, so that tree needs to be protected. So all these people start, praying for the darkness to go away, basically the sun to come back. And in doing so, they awaken the statue of Shiranui, the white wolf, who is now Okami Amaterasu. Yes. So the white wolf comes back to life, or comes to life. Her name is now Amaterasu. We're just going to call her Amy for short, because that's what they call her throughout the game a lot.
That's what Issen calls her, yeah.
Yeah.
Issen.
Yeah. It's revealed to the players that she is actually the sun god, and there are 9 K9 warriors, and she is one of them, and the other 8 are still in the celestial plane somewhere. So this wood sprite is talking to Ami, and that's when Issen is introduced, which is also part of Japanese folklore. So Issen pops out of her boobs, more or less, and Issen's a wandering artist. He's about the size of a flea, but he is a person. He's a man. And of course he's got a big attitude and kind of vulgar and talks a big game. But the folklore that comes from is there's a myth where an elderly Japanese couple couldn't have children, and they prayed and prayed that they could have a child. And they finally did, but when it was born, it was tiny. It barely fit in the palm of their hand. And
popped out of their boobs.
They gave him a needle once he got older as a sword, and he went out wandering Japan, trying to find his place in the world. And Issen's weapon is essentially a needle as well.
Well, that's kind of neat.
And yeah, it is a neat parallel, I guess. In the Japanese folklore, Issen eventually gets swallowed by somebody and becomes big. In Okami, it's the opposite. Ami will swallow Isin, and she becomes small, so she can get into different places that she normally couldn't. It all comes back around. Yes. So the story I told at the beginning is kind of mostly repeated, except in more detail. The gameplay mechanic is what's really unique about this game, as well as the art style. You have to gain, there's 13 different celestial powers.
So wait, that whole story, everything that you just told us is really kind of irrelevant to the quality of the game? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know to the quality, but basically it's this curse that happens every 100 years, right? So you're just repeating that, except you go into more detail, and it becomes very much Zelda-like. It's considered an action-adventure game, but you can, it's definitely got a lot of RPG elements as well.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the
and
gameplay
it's actually possible to play it avoiding combat as much as possible. Like
yeah. I mean, you have to fight the bosses, and
you have to fight the bosses, yeah.
Yeah, but mostly you're just trying to drown out the darkness, which you do using different celestial brush techniques that you learn. There are 13 gods in the game, and they each give you a power, and it's kind of like Zelda. You don't get them all at once. You gain them throughout the game, and their powers are based on the constellations. So basically you get to a certain level, and then you go to the celestial planes, and you draw the lines in this constellation, and that's the new power that you get. Like there's a bomb, there's water, lightning, wind to blow away fire, a slash move, which is just your basic attack move. Lots of different ones. Rejuvenate, which obviously is healing, so on and so forth. So you go through the game collecting those, and you go into different parts of it. It's called Nippon, but it's Japan. Nippon is just a different name for Japan.
Yeah.
And you eliminate the darkness wherever you can, and you also help a lot of villagers. You meet some really cool people, some really cool characters. A lot of them have references to other Capcom games, particularly Viewtiful Joe, but also Street Fighter. So I was reading some stuff, and not just on Wikipedia for once, and Hideki Kamiya actually mentioned he worked on the Resident Evil 2 remake, I believe.
No, the Resident Evil 1 remake.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, he obviously said that Zelda was a big influence on this game, but oddly enough, working on that game is what made him think doing this game would be possible. So it was actually highly influenced by that, if you can believe that. He just wanted to do it in a more beautiful, artistic sort of way.
And at first they wanted it to be a more realistic art style, more closer to like Twilight Princess.
Yeah, there's actually a 1-minute video demo that they did, and they just couldn't do the entire game like that with the constraints that they had. And I'm kind of glad, personally.
Yeah, it worked out.
Yeah, because the game is just gorgeous, in my opinion. It's great on the 2006 PS2 version. It's slightly better on the Wii because it's in 480p. So it's progressive instead of interlaced, but the PS3 version is just breathtaking. It truly is. So anyway, you go through, you meet a bunch of people, and one of the people you meet is a man named Susano. And he's basically, he is an ancestor of Nagi. And it turns out he's the drunk guy that took the sword out of the moon cave and unleashed the Orochi again. So,
bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum. So anyway, he's, nobody really believes in him. He's kind of the town drunk, so to speak.
Yeah.
And of course, he's in love with one of the beautiful maidens in town as well.
Of course.
And I think he turns her into a comb somehow to protect her. It's been a while. Anyway. But he's kind of one of the main characters in this.
Well, actually, yeah, that's part of... he does turn her into a comb. That's also in folklore. Because she's... Yeah, sorry, go ahead. You're not wrong, is all I'm saying.
That's rare. But I'm not wrong. So he kind of, sobers up, gets his act together, and starts training. And in the meantime, Amy and Isun are out trying to vanquish the darkness and return the land to the beautiful glory that it can be. And lots of side quests. You meet people and you help them out and do whatever needs to be done. Which is, I wouldn't say it's secondary. I mean, that's part of what makes this game great. But eventually you have to face off against Orochi again. And this time, however, Susanoo and some of the other villagers come up with this plan because they have a hard time defeating him, even with Ami pretty well powered up by this point. So they make 8 jugs of sake, and they throw one into each head and get the thing drunk, and then cut its heads off. So
brilliant strategy.
Yeah, and it's actually
level strat.
Not a terribly hard thing to do. So you're kind of thinking, okay, this isn't over, and it's not.
Uh-oh.
It turns out that Orochi is just a pawn for another evil being called Yami, which is the true evil that can banish the sun god and the sun and bring darkness to Nippon for all eternity. So that's what you end up having to fight. And spoilers, by the way.
The another bad guy behind the first bad guy trope.
So there's this guy that shows up throughout the game in typical RPG type fashion in a space arc, like an arc that floats, like Final Fantasy VII airships type thing. And you're not sure if he's good or bad. You actually have 2 fights with him personally throughout the game. He's pretty cool, though. His name is Waka. And
does he play Blitzball?
Well, and kind of at the end, because Yami is basically a big ball.
Okay.
And you show up to this fight, and Waka is trying to take on Yami all by himself, and isn't doing so well. And by this time, Amy has lost all of his powers. It kind of goes back to that you get to the end and then you're powerless type of thing. So Amy has to start fighting Yami, which takes on about 17 different forms. And every so often you get one of your 13 powers back until you finally get them all. And then Yami takes on his final form. And of course, you defeat him. But just as you think you've defeated him, he grabs you and comes back to life and tosses you out, and you're kind of back at square one like Shiranui was, with all your powers gone, and you're just this white wolf. Ami, as most people know, has, those markings, those red markings, and those come from the different celestial powers. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so you get those back, and then you finally defeat Yami, finally, for the last time. And supposedly, since it's not just Orochi that you defeated this time, this should bring an end to the darkness for eternity. So even if somebody gets drunk and steals the sword out of the moon cave again, you're good to go. I don't know. I don't feel like I talked about the gameplay enough, though.
No.
Daniel, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, we'll talk about the gameplay a little bit. I mean, when people compare it to Zelda, it's because it does have this large overworld and then sort of the same kind of like dungeon design, an overworld surrounded by dungeons, and within that overworld, many different side quests. Some villages you can visit to get those side quests and get items and that kind of stuff. And as far as like the combat, it's also very similar to Zelda, only you don't have a sword and shield. You're a wolf with all these different abilities that make sense for a mythical wolf. But also a huge... Oh, I guess you do, don't you? Yeah, but it's not... It doesn't... It's
That's just your basic attack that you can use.
Yeah. I guess you're right. But I don't even really ever think of it that way. It's not... You don't... Amaterasu... She doesn't really control, like, Link. You know what I mean? And the most interesting aspect, I think, of the gameplay that kind of sets it apart is the way that it uses this sort of drawing technique to use different items. And that doesn't just come into play in the action, but also in puzzle solving and traversal. Like, sometimes you have to draw a rope that Ami can swing on, or draw a platform that she can jump to, or draw a bomb.
Bridge. Yeah.
And that's really neat.
But yeah, it's very neat.
What platform did you play it on?
The only platform I've ever played it on is PlayStation 2.
2? So you played it around when it came out?
Yeah. Funny story about that. You guys have heard me talk about Jet before from GameStop in Kalispell.
Yeah.
Jet,
Yes.
how you doing? So I went in there, and I was actually going to buy Dirge of Cerberus, having ever played a Final Fantasy game yet. But that's the game everybody was talking about coming out.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I took it up to the counter, and the guy looks at me, and he's like... And by this time, I'd asked him a million gaming questions, and, like, whatever. You know, he was kind of my go-to guy. He's like, man... He's like, I'm not going to stop you from buying that. He's like, but really put it back and grab Okami. I'm like, what's Okami? And he went and showed it to me, and I was like, he's like, you can get both, but trust me, you're going to want this one. You'll like this one better. So that's how I got it.
That's awesome. Good for him.
Shout out to Jet.
Jet steered you right.
So you played it on PS2
at the GameStop Expo.
So, oh nice. So what you use for controlling the brush?
The brush techniques. I believe you held down either. Okay, go ahead.
No, you tell me. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you had to hold down either R1 or R2, and then use the left thumbstick to make the different, to move it, like in the circle with the stem for the bomb. Some of them were pretty tricky. Once you got used to it, it wasn't bad. It was a little bit tricky at first. I mean, slash was fairly easy because it's just a line straight through. But when it got to the higher level ones, like the lightning bolt, you had to get that almost just right. You had to get that angle just right for it to work. The bomb, like if you drew it too far away, it would be ineffective and it would just blow up on you.
Yeah.
Other things, but once you got the hang of it, it was pretty cool.
I played it on PS3, and I think it controlled the same way, and I thought it was fine. I thought that was going to be like really frustrating, but it wasn't at all.
Did you use the DualShock, or did you use the PlayStation Move controller?
The DualShock.
Okay, yeah, I think that's the way to go.
From what I heard, like the Wii version, a lot of people really like the Wii version because you could use the remote to color, and it was more precise, or at least gave you a little more freedom.
See, I actually heard the opposite.
Yeah, same here.
That's not what I saw in reviews that I was reading today, but yeah.
Huh.
Funny tidbit about the Wii version also. The cover art for it, they just ripped right off IGN's website, and when it shipped, you could see the IGN watermark in it.
Really?
Well, the reason that they had such trouble, I think, is that from what I heard is 2 months after Okami released on PS2, they shuttered Clover Studios.
Yeah, they're not even in the credits for the Wii version.
Yeah, they don't even make it in the credits for the Wii version. And so what happened when they did that was apparently a lot of the assets were lost.
Yes.
Well, so they didn't shutter the studio. They absorbed it into Capcom.
Okay.
So Capcom, I I know my stuff about Clover. That's what
All
I'm
right.
bringing to this
All right,
episode.
It's time to
go into
shine,
Clover
Jack.
now.
But Clover was set up as a semi-autonomous studio by Capcom. Like, Capcom created Clover out of itself. And they had the explicit kind of order to create new IPs. So that's why with Clover you have games like Okami. They also made a game called God Hand, which was a super weird game by Shinji Mikami. And then they made the Viewtiful Joe series too.
Right.
Which is probably what they're best known for, I would presume.
I think
That and Okami.
Viewtiful Joe and Okami are kind of about the same, I think.
Yeah, I should have stated before Okami.
And I think it's really worth pointing out that Clover Studio, sorry, not studios. Basically, a lot of Capcom's premier talent kind of went to Clover. So you had Shinji Mikami, who's like crazy known for his very, let's say, bizarre games. He was the director.
He went
of
on
Resident
to
Evil
do.
4.
Was he like Suda 51 Bizarre? Or...
He's not.
Well, he went on to work with Suda
Yeah.
on what's that called? Lost and the Damned? No.
Are you thinking
That's
The Evil
GTA.
Within?
No. What's that one with the guy with the gun that talks? That's like
Shadows of the Damned?
Demon. Shadows of the Damned. Thank you.
Yeah. He makes a lot of weird games, but basically he's one of the main guys behind the Resident Evil series. He did Devil May Cry. He was involved in that. He was involved in all kinds of stuff. Killer 7, we mentioned that earlier on the show.
Yeah.
Vanquish was another big one. But basically, he's one of the crazy talented kind of visionary types who was there. And then you have Hideki Kamiya, who, he worked on the Resident Evil series and also worked on Devil May Cry as like director, and then went on to make Viewtiful Joe and then Okami, and he made Bayonetta, and right now he's working on Scalebound, which I don't know if that's gonna shape up to be one of his best things, but we'll see. And then they also had Atsushi, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, Atsushi Inaba.
Inaba, yeah.
And he's known as kind of this famous game producer. You had this talent in one studio. Right after they released Okami, which I think was in April-ish of 2006, then they released God Hand in November, and then just a few months later in 2007, they got dissolved back into Capcom. As part of that, all of these talented people just left Capcom. And a lot of the things that they were complaining about was that Capcom essentially wanted to reduce the number of risks that they were taking in game creation by requiring, they quoted between 70 and 80% of all new games that they're making to be related to a series in some way. And they didn't want to do that because the actual number is closer to 100%. With what Capcom was doing at the time. So they left and made Platinum Games. And Platinum Games, of course, Bayonetta is the big, kind of one of their big smash hits. And then you have other things like Vanquish, really well-respected titles. And then you have, a little bit after Platinum Games kind of got off the ground and going, you have Shinji Mikami breaking off to do The Evil Within with Bethesda owner ZeniMax. So
it's hard to think of too many developers with more like pedigree, with more like just more of a legacy than that. Like I can think of like Ultima Underworld developer.
Richard Garriott?
No, the studio. Like a lot of people that worked on that, and then just splintered out, and like Harvey Smith worked on that. Am I thinking of the right game, or am I thinking like System Shock?
Are you thinking of Looking Glass Studios?
Yeah, Looking Glass Studios. Okay. But a lot of them started on Ultima Underworld.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
I think. I could be wrong. But either that or they were just influenced by it. But other than that, I have trouble thinking of many development studios that have had so much talent come out and continue to have such success.
And I mean, honestly, I this is speaking as an outsider, so I don't have a terrible ton of experience with Okami, but I haven't seen a ton of whenever anything I think that came out after Okami might have been attributed to Okami's influence. I think a lot of that instead got attributed to The Legend of Zelda. And its influence as a series. And it comes off as a love letter to Zelda, from everything I've seen.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing against it, but I think the biggest case you can make for it being a best games period is almost something outside of its control, which was the kind of the splintering of Clover Studio after it released, and creating, Platinum Games and having this kind of rippling effect throughout the industry, subtle rippling effect.
Yeah, totally.
Is that?
I mean,
you guys have both played it, so am I missing something?
No, and I think like the art style. I think especially at that time, like the art style of that game and Wind Waker, and the fact that both of them have really aged really well, and especially with HD remakes have benefited a lot from HD remakes. I think games like that benefit more from HD remakes than something like BioShock, which just came out. Like those, it just makes the animation look more like the original vision.
Yeah, it seems like there's a more distinct difference in those type of games when they're remastered or HD remakes or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, they've just aged really well, and Okami has aged very well. It's a really quirky game. Like, I did not finish it. I didn't get very far in it. It's kind of overwhelming. I just think at the time when I played it, I wasn't ready to get so into such a lengthy, epic adventure. But it definitely is epic. Like, it's huge, and there's so much to do in there. But you could speak to that better than I could, Jeremy. But it's just a really charming game too.
It's clever. It's funny. It's charming. I mean, it's actually really funny. The characters are really diverse. I mean, there's a lot of different, personalities, I guess you could say. And I think that one of the things I find most interesting is how it does tie so closely to a lot of Japanese folklore, myths, whatnot. Research was clearly done and done pretty well. Pretty well written. You really do want to, you want to help these villagers that you see just in help, desperate help. You really want to wonder why that guy's nonstop running. And, when you finally get to figure out why he's doing that, it's just a little bonus. It's not part of the core gameplay. It doesn't really matter, but it's fun and it's cool.
Like, if this was one of the Zelda games, I think it would be up there with Wind Waker and Ocarina of Time as, like, one of the best Zelda games.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best action-adventure games, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And no doubt that it's influenced by Zelda a lot. I mean, you even have the heart system, so to speak, for your health, where you start off with just, 3, and then you collect more throughout the game. And the same thing with the ink pots. Your celestial brush isn't endless. You have to manage how much ink you use, and the more powerful attacks use more, so you kind of got to keep an eye on that. But you can upgrade those, and by the end of the game, you basically have 2 rows of the health and 2 rows of the ink pots if you've done everything. And you kind of need them to defeat Yami 12 times. I mean, are we ready to call it, or?
I think you need to call it, because I'll say, just from the bit I played and just how well that game has aged and how much I've seen of it, I would say definitely it's the best games period. I really do think that it would be one of the best Zelda games if it was part of that franchise. So it holds up even against such stiff competition. So that's my 2 takes, but 2 cents. But you have more experience with it, so I wanna hear what you think.
Well, I think it kind of stands alone and apart from Zelda in its own way as well. In fact, I
think it does. Yeah.
I probably played this game. In fact, I know I played this game before I ever played Twilight Princess, which was the first Zelda game I actually played and finished.
Also starring a wolf.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, a wolf and a little, little companion, Midna.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, clearly that game was in development already when this game was being made, but I definitely think it's the best games period. I would recommend, if you're going to play it, try to get the PS3 remastered version.
Yeah.
Just because it's beautiful on like I said, the PS2 and the Wii, but I think it really shines on the PS3. Just from watching, I haven't played it on that, but you can just tell the difference in gameplay videos. But yes, one of my all-time favorite games. It's one of those, like, whenever I talk about my favorite games, for some reason I forget about this one, but it's up there, definitely.
So you would say it's the best game period?
I would say it's the best game period, yes.
Okay.
Have you played Okami then?
Yes.
What do you think of that?
I liked it quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
It was a little bit different because you had the stylus you could use to do the brush strokes and whatnot.
Right.
I didn't think the story was quite as deep, and it didn't seem to tie into the Japanese folklore as much. But it was a good game by its own rights. I wouldn't consider that a best games period, but I would consider it a good game.
Right. All right. What about you, Jack? I mean, I don't know if you're comfortable making a call or.
I'm always comfortable making a call.
Okay.
But I mean, obviously my perception of it is a lot different, but I feel like a big part of what makes a best game period is
the influence.
Yeah, a big part of it for me is what effect it has on the industry and its importance in the industry. And I think, like I said, it is absolutely gorgeous. I think it's one of the best aged games of the last several years. I mean, it's 10 years old, and if you go back and look at it on PlayStation 2, it still looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Even without, playing the remaster on PlayStation 3. That being said, I almost think the biggest influence it has is when the studio behind it kind of dispersed across the industry. And it's everything I've seen from it points to it being a really solid game. Like a really great game. But I think for me, it's another one of those that kind of teeters on the edge. And so take that for what you will. I'm kind of more inclined to say no than I am to say yes. However, then I remind myself that it's a 10-year-old game, and it came out on PlayStation 2. And I think if we were talking about just the Wii version, I would say no. But considering the technical limitations of the day, I think I'm kind of also on a yes side as well. So
you mentioned you might try to play it this winter over the holidays or something.
yeah.
Yeah, I would. If you do, I'd be curious to just have a quick other conversation after that.
We'll revisit it after I play it, and maybe I'll be able to make a more definitive statement one way or the other.
Trust me, as somebody that's played about a third of the games that we talk about, I know how hard it is to decide when you have it.
All right. So that was episode 39 of the Best Games Period. We cover games in detail every week. The episodes go up on Monday. You can find them on iTunes and various other places, such as community.extra-life.org. Jack, can you tell everybody about Extra Life?
Can I?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Extra Life. What is it?
I'm asking you.
I basically, you know how people...
You work for them. I would hope that you know...
Basically,
what it is.
like those walkathons people do, those Relay for Life events. Well, Extra Life is kind of like that. Every year we put on... blah, 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 blah. Every year we put on a video game marathon on November 5th this year. Wow, I'm really butchering this. My brain has been fried by Sonic rings.
Let's start over.
Basically,
you can start it over and actually cut it out. You know, when you say start over, you can cut it out of the podcast, Jack. Unlike when I said last week.
I was going to keep all that in. But
unlike when I said last week, let's start that over, and then you kept it all in. So then when I said let's start it over, I really sounded like a jerk on that episode. Thanks a lot.
It just shows that we're a little bit flawed. That's why I intentionally leave lumps in my mashed potatoes.
Anyway,
go ahead and tell us about Extra Life.
I was in the process of doing that.
Uh-huh.
Extra Life is basically like a walkathon or a Relay for Life, except instead of walking around a track or, moving around, you play video games. So, which I suppose you could also play non-video games. You could play volleyball, you could play sports ball, you could play your Dungeons and Dragons.
I actually read...
around.
I don't know how legit it was. I think it came from the Extra Life account, though. Something like 23% of the people that participated last year were playing board games or tabletop games.
A lot of people play tabletop games. A lot of people do like 24-hour-long single-session D&D campaigns.
Yeah.
It's actually really cool.
You could play Pachinko for 24 hours as long as you're raising money for the kids.
I think by the time people listen to this, it'll be Monday, so that means the previous weekend after you listen to this, the first week it's out, will have been Tabletop Appreciation Weekend, and there are a bunch of companies kind of go crazy and stream and stuff on that. I think the Wizards of the Coast is going to be streaming, or will have streamed, Dungeons and Dragons with a adventure group. Pretty interesting stuff.
Cool.
Pretty popular. But anyway, this year the event is on November 5th. Anyone can sign up. Everyone who signs up can choose which hospital they want to support, which Children's Miracle Network hospital they want to support. And 100% of everything they raise from friends, family, and strangers goes directly to that hospital to help sick kids and pay for their treatment. It's really, really great. I mean, you get to play video games, or board games, or tabletop, or outside games. We've had people playing Pokemon Go and raising money. It's entirely up to you how far you want to take it or with what games. But the end result is you raise money for kids, and you have fun doing it. So Win-win. And that's all she wrote. Get on it. If you want to know more, you can head over to extra-life.org or community.extra-life.org if you want to know, kind of get more involved in the Extra Life community or find this podcast.
Can I just add that you don't actually have to sign up for an account to donate? You can donate to anybody that has an account.
That is true.
That's important to know.
Yeah, it is, because last year I didn't actually participate as I didn't actually join a team. I just donated to a lot of different people. So that works too. Yeah. This year I plan on joining a team and whatnot. But as long as the money gets in to where it goes, that's what matters.
Yeah.
All right. So keep that in mind for November 5th. I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna join the team this year too.
I'm thinking about donating $1 for every Pokemon I catch that day.
Oh,
that'd be cool.
That in that 24-hour period.
You're gonna actually see Jeremy's gonna be moving and playing at the same time. Look at you.
Yeah.
Innovation. All right, so that was episode 39 of the Best Games period, where we covered Okami. Last week we covered Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, and I put out some polls across the Twitters and the Facebooks, and overwhelmingly Facebook voted for Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare to be a Best Games period, and Twitter was kind of neck and neck, but eventually the no's won out on Twitter. So overall, combined, according to our listeners, Modern Warfare is a Best Games period. So you both were wrong.
Well, that's like Donald Trump running his own polls and then gloating about him.
Yeah.
Daniel, I mean, you get to word them, you get to advertise them, so they're potentially skewed a bit.
I do think there is a
It
little
was a
bit of
close
a
one for
skewing
me.
in your answer phrasing.
Excuse me, Jack. I don't know what you were talking about. This is how I wrote it on Facebook. It's time for this week's poll. To reiterate, a Best Games period is any game that deserves to go down in the history books as a strong representative of games and an important entry in the medium. Not necessarily the best game period, but one of them. Is that really wrong?
Except I very clearly remember, at least on one occasion, seeing
the
one
Mark
of
of the
polls.
Ninja one.
Yeah, one of your polls had the question, and then, is it a best game period? And there was yes, hooray, and no, ick, or something like that. Like a frowny face.
Anyway, my poll answers on this one were just affirmative
your rigged
and
poll
negative.
answers, we all get it.
Affirmative and negative. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
Fair
Whatever.
enough.
I saw you
both wrong.
campaigning in the comment section.
I was. But that was after it had already won.
He's got like
right.
18 Facebook accounts, so he could vote.
I didn't even think of that.
So
Cold
anyway,
fraud.
we will be back next week with episode 40, halfway to death. And we're not going to tell you what we are going to cover next week, because we told you it would be Kingdom Hearts this week, and it wasn't. So we're not going to make any more promises. We're just going to say we'll be back next week to cover a game. You can find us on the iTunes and Twitter at Best Games period. You can also listen to the show on SoundCloud, and occasionally we put some stuff up on our YouTube channel, Best Games period, as well as Game Informer and community.extra-life.org. Until next time, Jack, Jeremy, thank you for joining me tonight.
You're welcome.
I heart you both. All right. Listeners, we'll see you on the flippity dippity.
They need to build a point of sale system that has the Mario brick breaking sound to compete with the Sonic rings.
Well, there's Mario coin collecting sound too,
Yeah, but the brick breaking sound would be